Welcome everybody to our Monday night empowerment session, where tonight we will be talking about inflammation and different alternative options that you have at your fingertips through the Soul Naturals products. And as always, if you are interested in getting reminders, but roughly 15 minutes before we start our Monday night calls, text the word LEARN to 1-866-256-1970. And you will have a link directly in there to join right in, along with generally I have the recording from the week previous tied in there as well. So you have a link to that. So hopefully you'll take advantage of that. I also have another text service where I do share 1 minute like videos about general health, the same number, but you text the word TIPS, TIPS, just so you know. Anyhow, let's jump right in and get started. And we're going to hear from Miss Lisa Tucker.
Hi, my name is Lisa Tucker. Valerie asked me to give a short little testimony on my experience, my personal experience with chronic pain and inflammation, and as that relates to Soul Naturals. So several years ago, I got really sick. I was diagnosed with a couple of autoimmune diseases, and the pain was just debilitating. I literally could not do the things that I normally love doing, and I was bedridden a lot of the time. And I learned in that season that had everything to do with my gut health and the inflammation going on in my body, that it was just rampant and it was causing all these other problems to come up. And so I found I was introduced to Soul, and within about 3 months, I started to notice a real difference. And it's because we were targeting healing my gut and balancing my body. And I learned that in that process, that's when my symptoms started to disappear, when I became in balance and my gut was healthy. And it did take time. It was not a quick fix, a magic bullet. It took the better part of a year to get my gut into just a really good place where I could eat most things and I don't suffer. But now, 6 years later, on my programs that I would not give up for anything, I am pain-free. I rarely ever have pain, and I exercise a lot. I'm a runner and just do a lot of activities, and I don't have any of that pain I used to and the inflammation I used to that was so debilitating. So thank you, Valerie, for asking me to share my story. I always love to be able to help people.
I love Lisa's story because she has so overcome the debilitation that can come with chronic long-term inflammation. And it's just a true testament to what dedication and working on the root cause issues can make a difference and give you back your health in your life. So this is a quote from Dr. Mark Hyman, and it is right on point. It says, inflammation is a hot topic in medicine. It appears connected to almost every known chronic disease. And we're going to delve into that and help you understand why it's tied to so many chronic diseases. And through this, I hope you will understand why the Bella Health program, along with the SoulFlex PI, can get in and have such an impact on inflammation. Yes, we have other Soul products that you can always bring in that also help, but we're going to focus on those ones tonight. So what are general signs of inflammation? It's recognized by a couple different things, pain being one. And I mean, some of this is going to seem kind of like duh, but pain happens when areas swell or reacting, and that's creating that pain, whether it's due to an injury or a disease, or as we call a dis-ease state, or inflammatory foods, whatever it is, it's creating pain. Next, there's going to be heat with it. We will see redness a lot of the time, swelling, and loss of function. These are the general, and you notice those are very general statements or words that tie into recognizing if there's inflammation. So not always do people think about it this way. So if I notice there's heat on something, I automatically know that we need to focus on cooling that area. If there's heat, there's often, again, because it's swollen, we've got the pain. The redness, we know it's agitated. The body's trying to bring, the lymphatics, the white blood cells, everything in to help and work on it. The swelling, it's also protecting, but it's showing the inflammation. But when you swell, you also lose the ability to move that area. So think as if you bump your elbow on something, and that would give you a good idea of understanding it. But so we look at and we know what can cause the inflammation, because there are multiple things. Injury, just like that example I gave. So many people are familiar with that. Maybe they sprain their ankle. It's an obvious thing. They understand why it happens. But have you ever thought about food choices? Did you realize that that can cause inflammation? For instance, sugar is highly inflammatory. And part of the reason it's inflammatory is it also flips over to an acidic state, which messes with the body's ability to utilize the nutrients that are in our food. When we have food intolerances, then our food kind of becomes like our enemy. Instead of it being able to give us the nutrition that we need, it becomes an invader. And then lack of fiber. So not being able to carry those toxins out of the system become an issue too. Lack of movement can cause inflammation. If you're not aware, the lymphatic system depends a lot on being able to move in order to circulate in the body. For instance, the knee, when the knees get injured and you're sitting still, which can help relieve the issue temporarily, but when you're not moving, that also creates an issue too, because it gets stagnant in there. And that knee joint does require assistance in order for that inflammation to move out. Lack of water can cause inflammation because those toxins are sitting there. The body's not being able to move the river throughout the body to carry debris out and nutrition into the system. Stress is a very acidic causing condition or experience to have. And long-term stress is very debilitating on the body. And that's actually one of the things we're going to get in next week, very deep. Lack of good restorative sleep. We all know we have those moments when we wake up the next morning and it's just amazing. And when you sleep well and you wake up rested, you get up and you are ready to tackle the day. Well, that also means that the body at night while you're sleeping was also able to carry out its detox that it does. A lot of your really active parts of the body, to include the liver, the lungs, and the colon, detox at night while we're sleeping. So they're taking out the trash. So when that trash gets out of the way, the body just feels better. Think about it when your house gets cleaned. You just breathe and feel better when you're in it. Environmental toxins can cause inflammation as well. And then something called dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is going to have to do with your gut bacteria or microflora being out of balance. And when it's out of balance, then it's going to impact the brain and how we think, or in fact, our ability to think, along with our immune system and being able to get nutrition as well. Now, we all know that all of our Solle products have adaptogens in it. That is the thing that makes our product line so unique and the first one on the market to do this. And we just talked a little bit about how stress can impact the body. So when we look here about how adaptogens help the body to normalize and more quickly get back to normal after having a stressor come in, then you can see that over time, those adaptogens are going to lessen the impact of stress on the body, therefore helping to reduce inflammation. So if you notice here, we have the normal way that a body would respond to stress with the dotted line. And we notice with the stress response with adaptogens, which is the non-segmented line, how much lower it is, much more quickly the body bounces back. If we have the ability to shorten our exposure to stress or our response to stress and can more quickly normalize, then our body will be less impacted by that as well. So the Solle Vital, why do I look at Solle Vital as a big component for challenging inflammation? Well, all these points that you see right here, chlorophyll is so good at alkalizing. I have had people tell me, more than one person tell me, and these people are in their late 40s or 50s. They grew up in homes with secondhand smoke. When they start drinking the Vital, their urine can smell like an ashtray. That is definitely moving out toxins. And remember, we talked about environmental toxins can cause inflammation. The Vital, because of its ability to alkalize also, and I've taught you guys how it works on balancing the sodium potassium balance in the body, helps to reduce inflammation. And a lot of people will notice that they're running to, to urinate more often. It's supporting those kidneys, and we're getting that edema out. It's being able to move because the minerals are in there. It's going to help the body to utilize your food better, because minerals are a catalyst for enzymes as well. And like it says here, you can help oxygenate the blood as well. This also helps to balance because it has 6 different adaptogens in it, and then just general energy. But the Vital, which is a component of the Bella Health program, which many of you know is where I start a lot of my clients on that program. Very simple program, but they have life-changing results because of how this program also addresses inflammation. CinnaMate is one of the other items that is in the Bella Health program. Now, blood sugar, when blood sugar is out of balance, and think of it back when I talked about sugar impacting the body. And sugars come in lots of different forms. It's not just white sugar that you can get it. Of course, you've got your fruit sugars, but also your starches that convert, and your carbohydrates and things like this. And insulin resistance is such a big issue for so many people. When we can help to manage our blood sugar more effectively, then the body can go through all its normal processes in the ideal state, the way it's supposed to. And when it does, and we can digest better and balance our blood sugar better, then that inflammation will reduce as well. People are often surprised to find that CinnaMate can be such a big key in this response. I've had multiple people with that had been diagnosed by a doctor with fibromyalgia, that this Bella Health program has given them amazing response, especially when we have the Sulflex PI. And it's because it gets in there at the key and starts to work with it. And here's a great testimony to that as well. This is about Natalie O'Brien's mother. So her mother had had fibromyalgia since the 80s. And even though she'd taken very good of herself, tried all kinds of remedies, nothing had really ever taken it away. She said 4 days into a sole regimen with CinnaMate, Sulflex PI, and then using the Lift Essential Oil, her symptoms disappeared and didn't come back. She said that was 2.5 years ago. And then this summer, this is an older testimony, she started drinking her CinnaMate cold instead of hot, and her symptoms returned. She didn't realize that for herself, when she drank it hot, she got a different response. So when she shifted back to hot, symptoms disappeared again. So that's one of the things that are so amazing with these products, is we have the ability to drink them different temperatures, mix them with different other drinks, maybe the CinnaMate Vital together, however people do it. But for this woman in particular, the CinnaMate hot was the key for her that helped her body step in and utilize it for the fullest benefit. Now, this is an older video that I'd made. Now, Vertizymes is also in our formula, or in the Bella Health program. And enzymes are really, really important and can be used to break down inflammation. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use enzymes and how they break down food. It is the same effect when you think about just inflammation in general. So I want you to watch this and see what I'm talking about.
So we're going to take and do a quick experiment. You guys can do this at home. All I'm doing is taking a packet of instant oatmeal and putting it into 2 different bowls down here. And then I'm going to add some boiling water. Enough to just mix this up. I'm not an oatmeal connoisseur, so getting the amount ideal is not really in my wheelhouse. So one of these, all I'm doing is mixing in just the plain water into the oatmeal, stirring it up really good. And then I'm gonna do the same thing to the other one. Should be, it looks like I've got about the same amount of water, gone up to the same, going to the same line here on the stripe in my bowls. Didn't realize that, that makes that kind of easy. Then I'm going to take the Vertizymes. I'm going to take 2 capsules and open them up and put them in here. There's one, let's get the second one. Okay, I'm gonna mix the Vertizymes into the oatmeal. Mixed in there pretty well. And then let's see if you can see. You can see we've got the 2 bowls here of the oatmeal. And then we're looking at the watch here, see what time it is. We're gonna wait 1 hour and be right back. Okay, it's been an hour since we left our bowl of oatmeal. And bowls of oatmeal, so you can see, they're both still there. Everything is here, been untouched. So, the oatmeal, just by itself, I want you to see that, look, I can turn it virtually upside down. Actually, I probably could. Yep, the spoon stays right there. Now, the other bowl is one that has had 2 capsules of the Vertizymes in it. That's all. So I'm gonna do the same thing. As you can see, very quickly, it just pours out. So the enzymes, by themselves, not doing anything other than sitting there, look what they did towards breaking down the food. And this is totally different than what's in the stomach, because in the stomach, you still have the movement and the shifting, and it keeps on turning and moving. This is just sitting there. Imagine what they do in your stomach when the stomach is doing its job, and be able to do that as well.
So now we're going to take this one step further. A lot of you know that in the Bella Health program, you take the Vertizymes on an empty stomach before bed. Well, once it gets done breaking down any residue of food that might be left in the stomach, then it's going to go after inflammation that's in the body. Very, very powerful. This is why you can also use Vertizymes on an empty stomach throughout the day in between the meals and work on inflammation as well. It is not uncommon at all for me to use Vertizymes in this specific function. You can also take the Vertizymes, mix it in water, and apply it topically to the area as well. And then our other component with the Bella Health program is going to be the ProBio IQ. Now, we talked about dysbiosis earlier and how that impacts the health when it comes to inflammation. We know the power of this formula. Well, look what it does here. By helping regulate the bowels, the trash goes out. Therefore, it's allowing the eliminative functions to work better. And the colon actually also has a tie back to the lungs that not many people are aware of. So the more we can help, apparently it says bowls instead of bowels, the more we can support the bowels for elimination and helping to keep that good bacteria there, the less inflammation we'll have. We talked about food intolerances. Now, does this mean that the ProBio IQ along with the Vertizyme is going to overcome a food intolerance? No, actually, you need to pull whatever that food is. But in the off chance you get exposed to it or choose to eat it, then this gives you help in breaking that down. And then vitamin B synthesis tied with it, the ProBio IQ helps support that. That's going to help the nervous system to better respond to stress as well, which means it's going to help with inflammation. And so now I am going to turn this over to Greg Halliday, and he is going to be talking to us about the Solflex PI. And he will take it from there to explain that.
Thank you, Valerie. Hello, everybody. Good to be here with you. I'm not going to use slides today. I thought I'd tell you a story about Solflex PI. So when I first was invited into the wonderful world of natural healing, by a friend. I think I maybe have mentioned in the past, I was very skeptical. And I quickly learned that I was the one who needed to educate myself because I saw some changes in myself. And in that very first, in fact, in the first month, I met a scientist who had worked for many years for the company that I began my own natural health journey at. And I stayed at that company for 20 years. And that's how I came to know Valerie and many other wonderful people. This scientist was there for many years, and he later left and was hired by a number of large pharmaceuticals. Most people don't know this, and opened up a very large, in fact, it was much larger than ours. So this company, manufacturing lab in northern Utah, where he was helping make formulas for many of the top pharmaceutical companies that were wanting to develop lines of herbs as well. And you can kind of see it's interesting story because you'd wonder why would they take someone away from an herbal company if pharmaceutical knows that and so much more. And it's not my intention to poke fun at all, but the truth is it is a very different mindset to look what you can pull out of plants and isolate and reconstruct by yourself synthetically versus learning about the plants and how to take advantage and use them as potentially intact as you can. And that's actually not what they did with this lab. In fact, they were in love with extracting things out of plants. This scientist that I have mentioned, his name is Mark, longtime friend. Dr. Valerie knows him, a PhD, and he wrote at least 2 books that to me are some of the most useful books in looking at the plant chemistry. And I love the way he did it because he looked at the various herbs and he simply rated them after lab tests on every single one of them, whether they were very low or low, average, high, or very high, in various well-known substances, like all the vitamins, like minerals, like other key compounds that we know make a difference in our health. And so many of those play a role in inflammation, as Valerie's already talked about today. And that's what you made me think about that while I was listening to you, Valerie. Well, when we determined to found Soul Naturals, one of the scientists I spoke with early on was Mark. His name is Mark Pedersen. Now, he has a brother who's done a lot of speaking in the natural health industry. And I don't want to confuse him with the brother. Mark isn't a speaker. Mark is a quiet, unassuming back office scientist who lets his writing and his research speak for him. And so sometimes people get him confused. The brother is pretty gregarious and very different and not so science grounded, I would say. So as I met with Mark, he's obviously over the years kept me apprised of his books and some of his research. I told him about our vision with Soul Naturals and about what Valerie talked about, adaptogens at the core of all our formulas because of their regulating benefits, some of which are directly tied to inflammation, how they manage inflammation. But even though that we were doing this as an overall strategy for all of our products, and we have stayed true to that, and we always will, we really have been surprised at how much greater the benefits have been by using this approach than we even supposed in the beginning. We knew it would be better to some degree. I think all of us have been surprised at how much better the nutritional formulas can be when we use balancing effects. Part of the reason for that is undoubtedly how many adaptogens deal with inflammation. And science was back then, I would say 5 to 10 years before we founded Soul, we were hearing it more and more. How much inflammation was related to almost any health condition, but it was kind of the fringes talking about it, and not everyone believed it. And even now, I would say people still, if you were to go out and declare almost all, health challenges have an inflammatory problem. Notice I didn't say inflammation because some inflammation is good, but an inflammatory problem is not good. And I think if you said that, a lot of people would just go, oh yeah, fringe, but that is absolutely truth. For the reasons that Valerie showed, I love that slide you showed, Valerie, on all the different causes of inflammation. Where you just slide sugar and stress on, because sugars are part of everything, all the processed foods, all the diets. So we use in way too large amounts. And stress has been, I don't know, 10 times what it maybe typically was for our kids now, and for so many of us, versus kind of way it was. I think in my childhood, man, did I have it easy. In terms of stress, that was just not an issue. So that being the case, it is a black and white, game-changing, life-changing recognition that inflammation is part of this for these reasons. Stress causes it, sugar causes it, a lot of acidic lifestyles, foods, and other foods cause it, along with all the other things. Less and less movement, more and more stationary. All of this, boy, add that third one, stationary lifestyle. There we are. So none of us should argue it. And so sorry, this was the background. As I'm talking with Mark Pedersen, with Dr. Pedersen, he took me over to the bottle that Valerie just showed. And I don't know if you want to show that screen again, Val. And his formula was slightly different because he had a couple of items in there that were not purely natural. There are some certain vitamins and components that are extracted and they're more synthetic that he was also privy to, and he would use them. And I explained to him that we didn't want to use any of those. So this formula that you see in front of you was 80% Dr. Pedersen's formula, and 20% are our changes to two items that he added that were not plant sourced. And the items that we added instead, noni, which is a 5 times concentrate noni. It is not just a little bit of powder of that fruit. It is a very concentrated of the wonderful properties in noni that are anti-inflammatory. And then we also added to it, we think of the other one because we had the magnolia. I think we added the magnolia bark. He didn't have magnolia in the original. But he told me, after looking at our finished formula, he actually worked on it personally with me. He said, Greg, if you were to start a company, because I know you're starting, and he knew about Soul Vital and we were in CinnaMate, we were just beginning. But he said, if you were just to sell one thing, and this is what you chose to sell, and because you wanted to change lives, you wanted to just totally change the health trajectory of an individual, this is the product that I would tell you to center everything around, because inflammation is so much at the center. Now, there's more. What Valerie talked to us today about the other components of Bella Health, they're all quite impressively anti-inflammatory as well in other ways, because they manage the various factors that lead to it. But if you want to look at a formula in Soul purely directed toward inflammation and yet still balanced, it's Solflex PI. We still have the adaptogens in it. The Boswellia serrata is absolutely an adaptogen, and so is the Scutellaria, which is commonly known by some as Chinese skullcap. I don't like to use that word because people have heard of skullcap, which is a totally different plant, just plain old skullcap. And you know, Chinese skullcap's a nickname because it carries some common attributes, but it is much, much more diverse and much more varied. It is fully adaptogenic. And you might even argue that noni, I'm not sure, but you might argue that about noni being an adaptogenic fruit. So it does have its adaptogenic core, Solflex PI. The P and I stand for pain and inflammation. Because when you address inflammation, you address pain. So the last thing that I want to say, and I've taken a little bit more than my 5 minutes, is this, is that when I think of Solflex PI, and I think of the way we deal with, it deals with inflation. Boy, there's another one. Okay, inflammation. A lot of people don't think about Solflex PI for mood, but if you can be effective, you can scale up Solflex PI to whatever levels are necessary and deal with pressure and equilibrium in the head area, head pain. I'm thinking of a lot of types of pain, migraine and others that have various reasons that lead to them. I realize Solflex PI will get in there with a number of those. And also it will address the colon nervous connection. It's also much better than people think at dealing with inflammation, indigestion, and in colon. I don't mean to say indigestion, but in the digestive process. So it is much more far reaching. There are lots of reasons if we sit and just talk about it, that Solflex PI is really a great centerpiece of it. And so I hope that, I hope you add it. I know it's not part of Bella Health because Bella already is going to get in there through the Vertizymes, the probiotic, and the Vitamin CinnaMate, and it is going to address inflammation. But this one is a great one to add when you have any inkling that is become perhaps the major issue that you're dealing with. So I love it. Val, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. So when Greg was talking about Noni, reminded me whenever 20 plus years ago, the only surgery I've ever had, I snapped my ACL. And Noni was what I used for the pain. I never used any painkillers. And Noni, I've always been a big believer in, and that is one of the components in there that I really love. It's almost like Greg saw the rest of my slides. This is fantastic. So this was a testimony I had from several years ago. And literally, I used to have a lot of migraines where I would lose my sight and hearing on the right side of my head. And now, in the rare case that I get one, I can use the Solflex PI and Vertizymes and jump right on that when the migraine's coming on, and I can get rid of it. And usually only 2 doses is all that I have to do. And like Greg was saying, yes, the Bella Health program is going to get down there and get at those basics to address underlying conditions for inflammation. Throwing in the Solflex PI is going to be a target formula to really get in and zero in and really push it on out. You're already opening up the channels with the Bella Health program. That Solflex PI is going to be even more effective with that groundwork laid like that. So our ending quote here is, a life without health is like a river without water. And so think about that. Look at that river. It's red, it's dried up. It's just, it can't move anything through there. You can't move debris. You can't bring nutrition. You've got no life going in there. Your microflora in the gut would be like the fish and the frogs and all the algae and everything that's supposed to be in the river. Nothing's there. So a life without health is like a river without water. Keep that in mind. So next week, we will be delving deep into the topic of stress. Because like we said, with all the adaptogens in our products, it is one of the reasons that I believe that, and this one of the sole principles that I had taught on at convention, was because of all the adaptogens in our products, you automatically feel better mentally as well, which helps you follow through. And therefore, right there, kind of nails it on the head. So I hope you guys will join us next week for that topic.